Guys, the international break is over, and when I say we've got a spectacular weekend of championship action coming up, I mean it, because we've got derbies coming out left, right and centre this weekend in the championship. I, for one, can't wait to jump into it, and as always, want to get your thoughts in the comments down below. How do you see these matches going? Do get involved. But without any further ado, let's jump in. And we're starting out on Friday night with quite an interesting fixture. Burnley up against Sunderland. Let's remember that the last time this Burnley side were in action, they did lose 6-0. Yes, they were playing Manchester City, but worth considering all the less. Now, Burnley back in championship action, the overwhelming favourites for this one. They're still yet to lose at Turf Moor this season. But to be fair to Sunderland, they're not going to be one of those sides who sort of cower away at Turf Moor. I think there's a lot of championship sides who have adopted that policy so far this season. But even thinking back to the reverse fixture earlier on between these two, Sunderland gave it a real good go against Burnley, particularly in the first half when they were 2-0 up. And obviously Burnley turned things on in the second half, ultimately winning it 4-2. So I can see Sunderland getting a goal here, but Burnley have been so dominant at Turf Moor this season, I can't look past them. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 3-1 Burnley as a realistic scoreline, I think. And next up then, and into the first of the derbies this weekend, we've got Luton going up against Watford, and this should be a feisty one at Kenilworth Road. Now, it's worth remembering the reverse fixture between these two earlier on in this season when Watford, against the run of play, just absolutely wiped the floor with this Luton side. So Luton will be out for a little bit of revenge in this one, and to be honest, I don't think there's going to be a great deal in this fixture. Certainly nothing like we saw last time earlier on in the season. Of Luton's last 11 matches, they've either finished level or they've been settled by a 1-goal margin. Now, a lot of that time it has been Luton who have come out on top in that regard, but it just shows how tight a lot of their matches have been recently. With the added pressure of a derby, how booming the atmosphere is going to be in Kenilworth Road for this one, I'm sure, and the added factor of Wilder as well, and him having a little bit more time to work with this Watford squad over the international break and maybe get a few more ideas across. Don't think there's going to be a great deal in here. I think Luton probably are the favourites with the league standings, but I've got a feeling that Watford get a goal in this one, and for that reason, I think I'm edging towards a draw. Score prediction in that one, I'm going to go for a 1-1er. Luton have kept things very tight recently. And then next up to Deep Delve for Preston against Blackpool. We'll be at this one, and I'm already nervous, especially as Blackpool won the reverse fixture earlier in the season at Bloomfield Road. But in terms of pressure, definitely think that this means more to Blackpool in the grand scheme of the season. You know, they're in the relegation zone right now, needing the points, and from a Preston perspective, we've not really got anything to play for at this point. However, that pressure can work both for and against Preston, I think it's fair to say. I'm not expecting a grand spectacle, I have to admit, in terms of the football being played by both sides. On the whole, Preston haven't been very good at deep delve this season, but equally to that, Blackpool have also really struggled on the road on top of that. Prior to the international break, Preston were actually on quite a decent run of form before we obviously couldn't really do anything against Middlesbrough, and they put 4 goals past us. And Blackpool had those two massively contradicting results, putting 6 goals past QPR before they went ahead and shipped 4 goals against Coventry. So there's a lot of vulnerabilities in this Blackpool side at the moment, but I'm expecting Mick to come to Deepdale and sort of shut up shop a little bit, play on transitions and make it a really sort of bitty game, and that's what I'm sort of expecting in this one overall. Score prediction, a draw wouldn't surprise me. I've just got a feeling that someone is going to show up and get something in terms of a goal or a moment for Preston. So similar to how we won it last year, I'm going to go 1-0 Preston in this one, but I'm not massively confident in saying that. Next then to Birmingham up against Blackburn. Does feel like ages since we last saw Blackburn in championship action. Before the international break, they had that FA Cup game against Sheffield United, obviously, which they were knocked out of. So full focus now back on the championship and finishing in the top 6. Generally speaking, they are on a decent run of form based on their last 7 championship matches. Only Coventry, I think, have picked up more points than they have in that time, which speaks to the consistency they're playing at the moment. But I still have this underlying feeling with Blackburn whereby in the most unlikeliest of games they'll end up coming undone, and then they'll sort of bounce back like that in the week after. Birmingham could very well be that side. They got a massive result before the international break, beating QPR. Bit of a must-win game for both sides of that, so the fact that Birmingham got that result over the line massively eased any worries about them being dragged into a relegation scrap. But on paper, I think I am edging towards Blackburn in this one. Score prediction here, going to go 2-0 Blackburn. Fancy them to get back to winning ways after the FA Cup. After that, to Ashton Gate for Bristol City up against Reading. Seemed like the international break maybe came at a decent time for Bristol City. They just about run out of steam with those back-to-back losses, but a decent chance here to get back to winning ways against the Reading side, who haven't been great recently, especially on the road, where they've lost their last 6 consecutive matches. I think they're without a win away from home, their last 8 championship games, and I think that makes Bristol City the overwhelming favourites coming into this one. We've still not really got much clarity on the point deduction situation for Reading. I think we were all under the impression that that would be completely ironed out over this international break, but we're still really none the wiser. That's certainly the case as of recording. For a score prediction in this one, I think it is Bristol City who I am fancying. I'm going to go 2-1 Bristol City in this game. And another huge game we've got coming up in the Championship this weekend is Cardiff up against Swansea. Last time we saw Cardiff, they had that game that was obviously postponed in the end against Rotherham, which was a massive frustration. And, I mean, from their point of view, games don't get much bigger than this. Now, the recent history definitely favours Swansea in this fixture. Cardiff have only won 1 of their last 8 meetings against Swansea. I believe last season was the first time in this fixture's history that one side had done the double over the other team. That was, of course, Swansea, and Swansea do hold the advantage here, having previously beat Cardiff earlier on in this season. There's definitely more riding on this from a Cardiff perspective because they're, well in this relegation battle right now, and Swansea don't really have all too much to play for. We saw Swansea on quite a frustrating run leading up to the international break, but we started to see a few signs of life just before we broke, and then obviously they had that win against Bristol City. I'm anticipating this one to be really close, but I just think that Swansea might edge this one again, to the detriment of Cardiff fans, I'm sure. Score prediction in this one, I'm going to go 2-1 Swansea, I think. Very much looking forward to this game this weekend. Coventry up against Stoke. I'm expecting a good game in this one. Stoke ended things before the international break on a really positive note. 4 unbeaten, much more solid defensively, and got a little bit more flair about them in the final third as well. But going up against the Coventry side, who are now on the 2nd longest unbeaten run in the Championship, only second to Burnley, and still well within the chance of a top 6 finish come the end of the season. What we mentioned in my sort of prediction video that I did for the end of season stand-in, and something that could maybe harm Coventry's chances of making it into the top 6 is 1 too many draws, and I do have the sneaky suspicion that this game could be going down that sort of path. It was a great win for Swansea before the international break against Blackpool, but these types of fixtures they need to be coming out on the winning end of, but I'm not sure given how competitive Stoke have been lately. So for a prediction in this one, I think I'm fancying a 1-1, not much to separate those two there. After that, for Huddersfield up against Middlesbrough, it was a brilliant result for Huddersfield just before the international break, as they gave themselves a lifeline with that win away at the Den, and they're going to have to channel that same spirit for their next upcoming matches, which are looking particularly tough, I have to say. Games against Middlesbrough, Watford and Blackburn are their first 3 back in action, and if they don't come out of those games with a sort of healthy points return and some of the teams above them start to pick up a few points, it really will be tough to claw back those points in the last few remaining matches. Not going to be easy here against the Middlesbrough side, who I was massively impressed by just before the break. Overall, they're on a brilliant run of form at the moment, and they absolutely wiped the floor with my Preston side. Defensively, really solid, but offensively, they've just got so many areas that they can hurt you from. I think they're going to have too much for Huddersfield in this game. Score prediction here, going to go 2-0 Middlesbrough, but you never know. Warnock might be able to produce something against one of his former sides. Next then, for Hull up against Rotherham. Big game here and the chance for Rotherham to get some points on the board. It felt like the international break came at a decent time for this Rotherham side, who had just about run out of steam towards the end. Obviously that game against Cardiff being called off, but the 2 fixtures before that, they weren't quite at their sparkling best and were a little bit more gettable in some defensive scenarios, and that's where they're going to need to be strong for the remainder of the season. Going up against a Hull side who I think will make it tough for them, particularly at home under a senior. I think Hull have been really solid. Not been much in terms of margins in their matches, but they've only lost 1 of their last 7 home matches, and that loss came against Burnley, so there's certainly no disgraces in that. It's a sort of game where I could see a draw or a 1 goal either way, and I think I'm just edging towards Hull in this instance. The break might have done Rotherham good, but I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side in this one and say they'll have just that bit more. Norwich against Sheffield United has the potential to be really interesting because both teams are playing for so much at the moment. Norwich need to get their act together if they are going to put together a serious case for a top 6 finish. It's still within their grasp, but it just felt like they ran out of steam a little bit and let some decent matches slip away from them prior to that international break. 3 without a win now, this Norwich side, going up against a Sheffield United team who just about got their act together before the international break. They were in FA Cup action, which could be a massive morale booster, beating Blackburn in the fashion they did late on, and obviously had that massive win against Sunderland just before that as well. For a prediction in this one, I'm expecting goals from both sides. I think they'll both get on the score sheet, but I think I am just about edging towards the Blades. I think that break could have done them good, and the 2 results they picked up before the international break might just have served as a little bit of a momentum booster. And from a Norwich perspective, I'm still not totally convinced after their last few results. So a prediction in that one, I'm going to go 2-1 Sheffield United, but I am expecting a few goals. Feels like this will be quite a defining week for Millwall, with games to come against, first of all, West Brom, and then they've got that game against Luton at home to look forward to. West Brom could sense this as an opportunity to make up some ground on Millwall above them, and I do think it's going to be really close between these two come the end of the season. I was sort of umming and ahhing over, when I was making my top 6 prediction, who to put in that 6th spot between these two, and this game could be absolutely pivotal to deciding that. West Brom at home, really good undercut run, generally speaking. I think it's 10 unbeaten at the Hawthorns now for the Baggies, but Millwall generally have improved on the road as this season's gone on. Felt like the international break probably did come at a decent time for Millwall, another one of those sides who had just run out of steam a little bit towards the end. They had that shock result, losing against Huddersfield, and even before that, some of the games that they were getting over the line were very tight margins. I'm expecting this one to be close. I'm maybe edging towards a draw. 1-1, I'm going there between those two, but that'll be massive for either side to get 3 points. And make no mistake about it, this is an absolutely huge game here, Wigan against QPR, because we've discussed it a few times on the channel so far how tough QPR's running at the end of the season is. Their last 4 or 5 fixtures, and they need to take full advantage against, a side like Wigan who are rooted to the bottom of the Championship at the moment. Having said that, going off the form book, it is Wigan who are in the better run of form at the moment. They've not really had much of a goal threat about them, but defensively so they've been a lot more solid than QPR, and I don't think there's going to be a hell of a lot in this game. The international break, you could argue maybe came at a decent time for QPR because they have been a sinking ship in 2023. Ended things on a sour note with that loss against Blackpool, followed up with that loss against Birmingham. A draw here wouldn't surprise me, but even with all the issues going on behind the scenes at Wigan, those players have still turned up and rallied for them week in, week out, and I actually think Wigan could take this one, which could land QPR in a whole lot of trouble. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 1-0 Wigan, which would be, big result down at the bottom. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. We have got some massive games coming up, and this has the potential to be an absolutely spectacular weekend in the Championship. As always, do leave a like if you went on to enjoy. Get your thoughts down below. Apart from that, I'll see you all in the next one.